Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show. This morning we're going to put the electricity bill calculator inside your spotlight on Now.
This morning, we're talking about the RIC's bill calculator for residential customers. And joining us in studio, we have Dawn Callender, the chairman of the Regulated Industries Commission, and also Dr. Michelle Salandi, executive director of the Regulated Industries Commission, also known as the RIC, something that you definitely have heard quite a lot about over the past few months. Good morning, ladies, and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Good morning to your guests and the viewing public.
It's a pleasure to have both of you with us on the show this morning for this conversation. Of course, it's been a hot topic. We've seen this trending all over social media, even got to the platforms of TikTok and so much more. So everybody, all ages are invested, which is fantastic. But before we get into the calculator, let's talk about the role of the RIC in particular, because what we've noticed is there's definitely that lack of understanding for some. So maybe we can start with you, Dr. Salandi.
Okay. The role of the Regulated Industries Commission is one that I would consider to be a very broad role. It is one that it's a role in which we have a level of balance to ensure between our different stakeholders. So in terms of one, we look at, and one part of the role will be looking at reviewing prices for the utility sector. And that role really leads to ensuring that one, the utility can be sustainable in the sense of making sufficient funds to ensure that there is service in the long term, right? So reliable service. And that reliability of service goes again to another part of the remit, which is looking at quality service for the customers. So the RIC also looks at protecting customers, ensuring that rates are affordable, ensuring that the service providers keeps up to its in terms of providing that level of service to the customer. So again, that's the customer. And in terms of the third stakeholder, another part of the remit is looking at, in terms of what are the environmental policies of the day, in terms of looking at what are government policies in terms of the utility sector, and overall, between balancing the needs of the three stakeholders, therein lies the role of the Regulated Industries Commission.
Thank you for mentioning that, particularly speaking about potential economic or environmental benefits, because it's really something that we need to be able to get into as well, to understand that this is something that's holistic. It's not just a case of, oh, the rates are going up, which is something we see so many people talking about. So let's talk about the proposed changes for billing as well now. Key is keeping in mind that it's proposed. This is not something that has been set in stone. Is this something you could expound on us with, Ms. Callender?
Yes, so to some extent, I would say that our job has been completed. We have reviewed the rates. We've put out what we see as the best rates. We think they are quite fair. As our ED was just saying, our job was to strike balance. So we considered the needs of all the various stakeholders. We particularly were concerned about residential customers, especially those at the lower income level. So we have proposed those rates, and from here, those rates must be approved by the TNTEX board and implemented. There's no time period for doing that, but we understand that they have been quite strapped for cash for a long time. We will put out the final determination on November the 1st, and on that date, there are some other requirements of TNTEC that would come into force. So we would like them to have their revenue soon afterwards to be able to meet those requirements.
Thank you. All right, so one of the things, Dr. Salandi, that Ms. Callender would have just mentioned is the fact that they have been strapped for cash. What would you say, aside from the fact that we're looking at, let's say, leveling the playing field and making this something that is sustainable long-term, are some of the objectives and the goals of actually bringing these proposed increases, particularly?
Okay, so again, one, most importantly for any country is to ensure that you have a sound infrastructure when it comes to your utility sector. So you want to ensure that going forward, current service and going forward is reliable, consistent, and always aiming for improvement in your service. So as Ms. Callender mentioned, there are a lot of directives that are also, besides only the increase in price, there are a lot of directives that are in the final determination, and those directives lead to ensure that the utility improves service service. Improves its service through increased and improved efficiency and improved reliability to the customers, whether it be in terms of having different types of investments to ensure longevity of the country and longevity in terms of looking at ways of improving service and in terms of looking at customers and consumers' interest.
Right, so talking about customers and consumers' interest, one of the things that we now see is this calculator. Can you share a little bit more about it, Ms. Callender?
Okay, so we've put out the calculator in order to guide persons with respect to what their rates would be. We know that there was a lot of anxiety around that. I would say in a very simple way, if persons were to take their existing bill, look at the kilowatt hours they have been consuming, divide that by 2, and then they apply the new rates to it. And having done that over, certain levels of consumption, we've been able to calculate that a typical bill should increase maybe by 15%. It could be as high as 64 in terms of what we've seen consumption. Of course, things may have changed. Maybe people are consuming more. If they are consuming more, it could be a little bit above 64%. But we think that's the range in which most persons should find their increase.
Okay, great. Now, one thing a lot of people have been talking about is the fact that there is also the the possibility, let's say, of going from every 2 months to 1 month. How did that decision come about?
Okay, so again, in terms of looking at the business plan that's proposed by TNTech, there are different proposals. Right? Again, one of the items that the RIC would have looked at would have been the move from bi-monthly to monthly billing. There are several benefits to that. We know that some people don't want the switch, but there are some benefits. One in terms of the service provider being able to manage its cash flow, so now as the bill payments would be monthly. And 2, for the customer themselves. There were some that said, this move to monthly will be beneficial to them because in terms of a lot of persons being paid weekly, every 2 weeks, or even monthly, they can now match their bill to their monthly consumption and have that payment there. And as well, when you're looking at your bills, if you want to make an adjustment, you wouldn't have to wait until 2 months to realize I wanted to make the adjustment. Right. You can then make your adjustments monthly so that you know what your bill is going to be expected and you can match your salary at the end of the month in terms of making payments.
So looking at a way to effectively manage as well for both the consumer and, of course, for the company. Ms. Callender, you just said that essentially the role of the RIC has come to a close. What is the next step?
The next step would be for us, we're going to publish 2 documents on November the 1st, which would be Wednesday. And the first document would be the final determination. So having gone through the consultations, we did listen. We got a lot of feedback that we thought was useful, and we have changed our positions on a number of issues, and that's where you'll find that information.
Oh, wonderful.
The second document you'll see would be the stakeholder response. And we got a lot of comments from stakeholders, written comments, as well as during the oral comments during the consultations, and we answered those comments there in a more formal way. Of course, we answered them on the fly during the consultations, but now we have a longer, more considered position on those.
Okay. So that's something to look out for on Wednesday, of course, available to the public.
Of course, yes. It's going to be posted on our website and so on, yes.
Okay, fantastic. So, you can see the website is there on the screen, viewers, www.ric.org.tt. That with the /, of course, is so that you can access the electricity bill calculator, which I saw is also a link is on your Facebook page.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, one of the things, just to touch on as well, viewers, you're seeing it there on your screen, is you did speak about the environment as well, which is something that is trending throughout the world as we continue to develop. We need to take care of our environment. So can we talk about any of the potential economic or environmental benefits that are going to be, let's say, married to or associated with these proposed price increases?
So again, one of the, I would say, environmental would be our transition in terms of looking at the way in terms we produce power. So again, renewable energy, and looking at determining the revenue requirement and looking at the way forward for TNTech. The RIC would have looked at including costing, and in terms of the costing and then the benefits of renewable energy as a source of power. So that's one. And in terms of I know we spoke of the residential and the residential consumptions and the rates. Having that fourth tier. The fourth tier is also another way in which marries basically the way people consume and the cost in terms of the cost of using natural gas as a power source.
Okay. Great. Now, this calculator is specifically for residential customers. Is anything going to be available, or can this also be used by those who are in different tier industries as well?
No, the calculator that was placed was only at this time for the residential customer.
Okay.
So it only allows the residential customer to put in their kilowatt hour consumption and see basically what the proposed increase could be given at the maximum rates.
All right. And of course, something to take into consideration is this is proposed. This is not something that has been set in stone yet. And we wait for
it's proposed in terms of the proposed maximum rate.
Right.
So that's the maximum rates that can be taken up by TNTech.
Thank you for mentioning that particularly, because when we say proposed maximum, there is a possibility that something less could be implemented by TNTech.
Yes, TNTech can certainly make that decision that they don't want to take up their maximum rates and they want to charge something a bit lower. And that discretion is left with TNTech.
Very important to note. Dr. Salandi, any final comments for Trinidad and Tobago before we close?
One of the things I would say is the RIC had placed that calculator to ensure that any confusion in terms of the rates could actually be resolved for particular users based on their consumption. So I would say go out, go on our social media platforms. It's easy to find our website and utilize the calculator to ease some of the the concerns that you may have.
Yes. And Ms. Calendar, any final comments for Trinidad and Tobago?
Yes, I would say that the rates that we've set, we took a lot of care in setting them. We were aware of the issues concerning persons, whether we heard them before, during, or after the consultations. I think my advice to persons would be to think about the environmental issues. We can all contribute to that based on how we consume and how much we consume. And if persons consume more deliberately, I think they would find that their bills could be quite manageable.
Thank you so much, both of you, for being with us on the Now Morning Show. The RIC's electricity bill calculator for residential customers is available to you. And we're also here for you all the way until 8 a.m. Stay tuned. This is the Now Morning Show. We'll be back in a few moments.